Alrighty, I think that's gonna be it. We got Joe, we got Scott, Courtney, Mark, we got Jacques on the call, and we got Sherry here. Alrighty. All right, Mark, I will hand it to you to kick off the meeting.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. As Andy mentioned, Chad let us know this morning something came up and he asked if we'd carry on without him. And I said, of course we would. So glad to see everybody. Just as we call together this meeting of the Private Forest Accord on Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. Andy, why don't you go ahead and do the roll call?
Alrighty. All right, I'll call your name. Just respond in the affirmative if you are present. Chad Washington. Joe Liebezeit. Liebezeit, right?
Got it. And I'm here.
All right, Joe, I say your name many times leading up, so I appreciate the patience there. Scott Lightcap.
Present.
Courtney Griesel.
Present.
And Jacques Dalton and it is Jacques, right? Or do you prefer John?
Yes, Jock, J-O-C-K. Yeah.
J-O-C-K. Jacques Dalton. Right. So I guess Tiffany is out right now, so I'm kind of doing a little bit of everything right here. Sherry Johnson.
Yep. Here.
And Mark Stern.
Here.
All right, Mark. Got roll call done. And I hand it back to you for the next agenda item.
Yeah, we have an agenda that Andy provided to all of us. So just checking to see if anybody has any additions or comments on the agenda. If so, give a shout out here. And if not, we'll consider the agenda approved. And then we want to move on to our meeting minutes from November. Any questions, corrections, or updates there that people have to share or offer? Hearing none, we'll consider the minutes approved. Which brings us to a public comment. And I guess, Andy, I'd flip that back to you if we have any public comment and open it up for that now.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks, Mark. So we didn't have any written public comment or testimony submitted to the committee at this time. But it's an opportunity for anyone on the call to raise their hand virtually. And you're welcome to provide a 3-minute public comment if you wish. So we'll give just a moment here. Please raise your hand or come off mute. All right, Mark, doesn't look like we have any public comment. We're going to roll through.
Okay, the next agenda item is new committee members, and I want to welcome Sherry and Jock to becoming members of the advisory committee for the Private Forest Accord. In a minute, I'm going to ask you guys, each of you, to take a couple minutes and introduce yourself, maybe explain how you got interested in being on the Private Forest Accord, what your background is, how that connects, and maybe share something personal about what you like to do when you're not working on the Private Forest Accord and what takes up your time in that way. And then we'll also go around and have the advisory committee members introduce themselves, including Jennifer and Mark there, who are the ex officio members as well. And so with that, I would kick it over to Sherry, to you, and maybe you can give us a little introduction on yourself as we welcome you to the committee.
Sure. Thanks for inviting me. I know a few folks from working on various issues over the years. I'm an aquatic ecologist, recently retired from U.S. Forest Service Pacific Northwest Research Station. I'm also I'm still a volunteer with Forest Service Research, and I've been courtesy faculty with OSU's Department of Fisheries, Wildlife, and Conservation Sciences since 2000, I guess. I've been involved with multiple projects over the years, specifically forest stream interactions, forest management. I've worked quite a bit on stream temperature, some in-stream flow, stream food webs, reservoir food webs, kind of all things aquatic, mostly the abiotic-biotic interface. What else? I was a scientist I was the lead scientist for the H.J. Andrews Experimental Forest, which is up to Mackenzie, for 20 some years. And in that role, interacted quite a bit with interdisciplinary projects and was the co-science lead for the Trask River watershed study in the Coast Range with ODFW, and Weyerhaeuser at that point. These days, I'm doing still quite a bit of volunteer work in science. There's lots of needs and everybody's stretched in all kinds of areas. Quite a bit of reviewing, still overseeing the hydrology and biogeochemistry programs up at the Andrews. And wanted to get involved with this because I'm interested in forest stream interactions, and it's nice to be on the giving side of grants rather than always being the people who write the grants and trying to get the money. So it's kind of a nice, I've been involved with multiple reviews over the years of different projects. So I have a little familiarity of reviewing proposals and look forward to it. Look forward to working with y'all.
Yeah, well, that's great. Really appreciate you being willing to volunteer and participate. And obviously, you bring a strong interest in all the fisheries and stream related stuff, which is just spot on for the kinds of proposals we all get to review and look at. So your insight and expertise on that will be appreciated there. What do you like to do when you're not messing around with all the science stuff?
I do hiking, gardening, generally enjoy being outside, swimming in
Yeah,
the summers.
very fun.
Just all kinds of projects.
Well, thank you. Jock, if you're there, why don't you take a minute or two to introduce yourself as well?
Okay. I was born and raised in a piece of property where I still live 75 years later. And I've done various things in my life, and including 10 years up as seasonally flying in Alaska, originally starting out supporting the Bristol Bay red salmon fishery, flying sockeye salmon to market, and including flying all over Alaska, mostly with DC-3s. And then we were, with my family involved me in the forestry management, and we were doing essentially watershed council stuff before there was ever a watershed council, because we were working with the city and other landowners on keeping the stream, Rickrell Creek, in good shape, managing things. And I was one of the original members of the Rickrell Watershed Council. And there was a spot on our property that was too rocky to support growing trees. So we started a rock quarry and ran that for 15 years before selling it off, including winning a whole series of environmental awards for it. And now I'm supposedly retired, and I'm on the boards of the Oregon Tree Farm System and the OSWA, Oregon Small Woodlands Association. And with the Woodlands Association, I was asked if I'd want to be on this board, so I agreed. So here I am.
Yeah, that's great. So DC-3 in Alaska, is that considered were you a bush pilot, a bush plane?
Yeah, if you include things like landing on beaches, bush flying with a DC-3, and going in and out of places that were, well, let's see, 1,800 feet, I think, was the shortest runway I went in and out of with a DC-3. So that's a 100-foot wingspan, so it's only 18 times the wingspan.
No doubt you had some adventures with all that work, for sure.
Yeah, some I don't tell my wife about.
We'll look forward to hearing about those sometime then. We're going around the advisory committee. Maybe I'll lead off, but just as I shared before, Chad and I got a chance to visit with both you, Sherry, and Jock. But just as a reminder, a refresher, I worked in Oregon on fisheries and wildlife issues for a career with the Nature Conservancy in Oregon, and a lot of my time was spent on the east side in Harney Lake, and particularly Klamath County, and in Klamath, where I was involved with fisheries, restoration, water quality, dams, tribes, power companies, ranchers, farmers, and everybody else who was in that cabal that, has eventually led to where they're working on today with some of the dam removal stuff. And then I also had a stint leading our forest conservation program that was pretty much focused on wildfire risk reduction and management strategies for the fire-prone forests on the east side in Southwest Oregon. And I'll share that when not working, my wife and I spend a lot of time outside hiking. We have a place in Central Oregon we go to a lot, so that's been a great excuse to be over there and launch to other places on the east side. So it's a nice way to see different parts of the state. So with that, maybe I'll pitch it to, maybe we'll go Scott, Courtney, Joe, and then Jennifer and Mark, so you guys can know where you're at in the queue there. But
Okay.
Scott, all yours.
All right. Well, welcome to the new board members. When I saw Sherry's name, I was wondering if it is the illustrious Sherry Johnson, and sure enough, it is. So nice to see you again, Sherry, in a non-work capacity. So, and Jock, we haven't met yet, and I can't see you because your camera's not on, but apparently we're paired on our review team, looking at a bunch of projects. So I look forward to working with you on that. As far as my background, I have been a fisheries biologist my whole career, working in land management, first with the Forest Service and then finishing my career with the BLM. Started as a grunt doing stream surveys for people like Sherry. I didn't actually work for Sherry, but went to some great places throughout my career and worked my way up. And the job definitely got more political towards the end, and finished up running the program in Oregon, Washington, BLM. So got to see a lot of great stuff around the state, arid systems, rainforest systems, all that stuff. And realized shortly after retiring a few years ago that you can't just do a hard stop. You have to kind of keep your toes dipped in the water, and it's just in your blood. And yeah, like Sherry said, it's nice to be on the giving side instead of the hustling money side. So I do appreciate that part of it. As far as what I do in my fun times, fishing, and a little bit more fishing, mostly of the fly end of it. But I'm not a purist. I'll do whatever it takes to get some fish. And also doing a restoration project on our property, trying to bring it back to an oak savanna, get rid of those pesky conifers that have been encroaching. And so yeah, that keeps me plenty busy. So that's me.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Scott. Courtney?
Yep. Hi, Sherry and Jock. Welcome to the committee. Last year, it was my turn to be new, right on the eve of a lot of grant applications. So welcome, and it'll be fun. And I think we have a great time when we work through this stuff and do the field trips. So looking forward to getting to know you all. My background has been in community development for really my professional career. I started in the public sector, did almost 20 years time with a local city that sits down here in Lane County. Now I have the opportunity to work for Sierra Pacific Industries. So we're a wood products company that owns a decent footprint of timberland that we manage. And so our footprint's mostly Lane County South. And it's been an opportunity to kind of learn from this committee and everybody, and also sort of build a little bit of the bridging on how I think about community development and how community groups are working in the landscapes they live. So exciting. And in my free time, I'm finally at that stage of life where I'm really not myself in my off hours. I am my child's mother, which means I'm shepherding around to water polo games and swim meets and whatever random thing he is at his kind of whimsy. So that's me.
All right. Thanks, Courtney. And Joe. Why don't you give it
Yeah,
there?
yeah. Welcome, Sherry and Jock, to the team. Now I am no longer the new member, so I can point to you guys as the newbies. Yeah, let's see. So my whole career has been in the environmental kind of conservation NGO world. So I worked for 12 years for the Wildlife Conservation Society, and I was actually up in Alaska a lot doing mostly the field biology work in a few different remote places out by Tishukpuck Lake and Prudhoe Bay. And so I did fly in bush planes a lot. So I'll be looking forward to talking to you, Jock, about some of those experiences. Um, my last 14 years of my career, I've been with the Bird Alliance of Oregon, formerly Portland Audubon. I'm the statewide conservation director. So we do conservation work from the coast to Eastern Oregon. I have a few employees under me that I work with to execute a lot of that work. And I'm happy to be on this committee and working on forest issues with this group. My free time, I have two daughters, two teenage daughters, so they keep me busy with all their extracurricular stuff. One of them's getting ready to go to college soon, so keeps me busy. I just got a new puppy, so might be kind of going back and forth here, trying to corral my puppy in. And I also play music. I play mandolin. I'm in a string band, so play in Portland. I live in Portland, so yeah, those are some of my things I like to do.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for sharing that. And then Jennifer and Mark, and just to clarify, Jennifer and Mark Rembrenner are on the ex officio committee, part of this committee. They represent the state agencies that they can mention to yourselves. We have had two other ex officio members as well. One person from NOAA Fisheries, who I think is not here today, and then Fish and Wildlife Services also had a slot as an ex officio member on the board, but given all their personnel and staffing changes, that spot is not filled at this time, and I guess remains to be seen if they will or won't fill it. But and I just want to say both to you, Jennifer and Mark, I really appreciate your guys' participation as an advisory committee level, because you're obviously involved in this stuff on a day-to-day basis, and you have a lot of insight to how it works, how the state agencies can work, and so your perspective and general comments and even specific comments on the projects is just really valued and appreciated. So thanks for making the time to do that for us. And Jennifer, I'll pitch it to you there.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So yeah, welcome Sherry and Jock. It's nice to have you guys on this committee. I work for Oregon Department of Forestry, and I'm the representative for our agency. And currently I'm the coordinator for our habitat conservation plan. So I have my day-to-day work has a direct connection with this program, in that the program is an important part of the habitat conservation plan. I've been with ODF since 2003 in various roles, mostly as a wildlife biologist. And then before that, I worked at Oregon State University for a while. And I know, Sherry, you and I crossed paths, I think, in a couple of different parts of my career. So it's nice to see you again. And then as far as my free time, it's anything with the outdoors and my animals. I have dogs. I do dog sports and also horseback rides. So I keep busy. With that, I'll pass it to Mark.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and I guess it's afternoon now, and welcome Sherry and Jacques. I'm Mark Grundbimmer. Was mentioned, I'm on the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board, and I serve as a regional program representative in Southwest Oregon. I've worked for OWEB and primarily in the open solicitation and support for the focused investment program since the agency was developed in 1999. Prior to that, I served on the Governor's Watershed Enhancement Board and actually was on the Oregon Plan implementation team when we were writing that plan. Prior to that, I worked for ODFW, and before that, I served in the United States Coast Guard. So that's kind of a quick overview. Things I enjoy, I like fishing, hunting, rafting, horseback riding, and my great grandkids. So there you go.
Yeah, sounds good. Good stuff. Thanks for chiming in there. Andy, why don't you just share just a hair about yourself as well, so everybody's on the same playing field here.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I'll go quick. I had a nice meeting with both Sherry and Jock previously. Spent some time catching up. So I'm the Private Forest Record Grant Coordinator for this program and the board appointed person for the committee. So I help shepherd this process every year. I've been brought on with ODFW about 3 years ago now to help create and stand up this grant program with this great committee here and others who have been in years past. Previous work is conservation. I came up from California just a few years ago. It's on public record now. And I've done plenty of conservation work down there on the other side of it when it comes to receiving granting funds. So it's always nice to hear that people are excited to be on this side of it. I agree with it. It is much nicer not to do the hustle all the time, but it's great to be able to engage on this side and see the difference that we get to make every day across the state. So appreciate it, Mark, and I'll kind of be quiet there.
Yeah, I noticed, thank you, Andy. Tiffany, I noticed you chimed in or joined the meeting here. I wondered if you'd be willing to just share a few words about yourself. I will say Tiffany's kind of part of the glue to this whole operation in terms of making things go forward and happening, particularly on our in-person visits. So Tiffany, if you want to chime in, that'd be awesome.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm Tiffany Caldwell. I support Private Forest Record and the Oregon Conservation Recreation Fund. Just on the administrative side and assisting Andy. I recently reached out to the two of you, actually to the whole committee, about our upcoming in-person meeting in March. That's very exciting, and I look forward to hearing from you. And to the newcomers, if you have any questions or need any guidance that I can provide you with, please feel free to reach out.
Yeah, super. Well, thank you, Tiffany, for all you do for all of us. So
I appreciate
very good. Jock, I saw your picture there for a nanosecond, so you're doing something right with all your controls.
Yeah, I'm playing with it. There we go.
Well, moving on.
Don't follow the directions. Go ahead and fiddle with clicking icons.
Yeah, if it works, do it. So that's good.
Yeah.
The next agenda item is on our committee meeting frequency. And just for a little bit of context, as this group got together and has functioned over the last several years, typically we had meetings scheduled once a month. And just sort of in reflecting on where we've come and where we've grown to, that first several years was really spent a lot of time on process, figuring out how it was going to work, how things were going to come together. And we did need meetings on a more frequent and regular basis. But as we talked about in the November meeting, there was some reflection that we didn't necessarily need to meet as often as that, and that we might try an alternative approach of meeting quarterly. And sort of an open discussion here, but as we've talked about it, we'll have our in-person meeting in March. Next meeting might follow in May, where we can begin to look at how things are implemented. The August meeting might allow an opportunity for conversation and figure out what the solicitation would look like for late 2026. November meeting would happen right before the solicitation goes live. And then somewhere in the fall, maybe September, October, we have talked about having a field trip, as Andy has proposed, to Northeast Oregon up into some of the projects on the Walla Walla River. So that's sort of on the table for discussion. I don't know, Andy, if you want to amplify any of that or share your thoughts about it.
No, well said, Mark. So I just agree with everything you said. I don't think I have much more to add. You got right on the nose there that in the beginning, we did need a lot of meetings. We actually had even as Mark remembers, a lot more than a lot of meetings. We were meeting almost every 2 or 3 weeks at a certain point to get stuff rolling. So just trying to be most efficient with our time and deliver it. We can give it a shot this year, see how it goes, and course correct also. So.
Any thoughts or feelings on that? How does that sound to folks out there? Good, bad, indifferent?
This is Joe. I was just curious. I'm new in the committee. I know there's a lot, especially in the spring with reviewing grants and leading up to that. Will the meetings be any longer now that they're quarterly? I didn't catch if you said that we would expect a longer meeting time because there's more to cover if we meet less frequently.
Mark, can
I guess we'll see. My instinct would be, I don't think the meetings will necessarily be longer. You know, we've really ironed out a lot of the bumps and we sort of have a process that's established and kind of rolling relatively smoothly. So, you know, barring unforeseen things that certainly could come up, I would imagine a lot of our meetings can be 90 minutes or less, would be my guess.
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't see meetings running any longer unless it's a special discussion.
I mean, Courtney,
And
if you're
then-
concerned the meetings would be too short, we could try and have some more.
I
longer-
like short meetings, but I guess I'm just wondering as we get closer to the grant review, does that will that be a fine? I mean, I'm just it seems like there's more going on at that time that we might need to get together more. But
We'll get to have one really long meeting for the grant review.
Yeah,
that's true.
the grant review is expected to happen independently of our occurring meetings every year. So we'll still have that date in March. The only time we'll cancel it is like next month if, you know, the meeting coincides. But that will always be a 2-day meeting for the grant reviews.
All right, sounds good to me.
I think the other part, and Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, is there's some opportunity to visit with Andy and or some of the technical review people if you have questions about particular grants. And that would not be a full-scale meeting, but that might be something offline that you work on with Andy if you particular grant you wanted to follow up on or had some specific questions on.
Yeah, Mark, and I'm happy to answer some questions as we get to that later point in the presentation here. But I'm always available to help make those connections and give some clarifying stuff on the applications. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about that coming up in a few agenda topics, yeah, great time to ask today.
And Scott, Jock, Sherry and Jock, I realize we're asking you to take it on faith here, I guess, but I guess I'd go back to Scott and Courtney just to see how you guys feel about quarterly meetings.
I like the idea of not having meetings just to have meetings. That does appeal to me. My first reaction was, boy, that's a big cut. My approach would be maybe dropping it down to 6 meetings a year, so every other month instead of jumping to quarterly. I seem to recall when I first came on, there were a couple more science presentations about cutting edge science that relates to what we do and the projects we attempt to fund. And I thought those were pretty helpful, especially for folks who don't live in that world. So I wouldn't want to, eliminate those possibilities by having, a full agenda only 4 times a year where we wouldn't have time for some of those science presentations. So, but again, I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. If you guys feel we can get it done in 4, I'll go with that. But that's just off the cuff thinking. So.
I think that's a really good observation, actually, because some of those science presentations we've had, I think, have been pretty informative and germane to our work. So that's a good point for consideration there. Courtney, do you have any initial reactions or thoughts?
Yeah, so when I saw it, the way I kind of had figured is it would be those quarterly meetings that were in addition to the grant review meetings. And so as I was thinking about what we populate the quarterly meetings with, it was similar to, updates on projects and some of the science presentations. And so it almost felt like we were probably talking about 6 or 7 meetings by the time we insert field trips and grant review engagement. And really those 4 meetings get to prioritize some of the science. So I look more to staff to get a sense of, does that cadence for giving us updates on relevant technologies is for adequate, or is it up, or are we needing to do something more often in that space?
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think you got it correct there, Courtney, really. A business as usual in past has been that we've had a lot of kind of, as Mark was saying, developmental stuff happening. So we haven't had as much time to bring in project updates by even grantees if we want to explore that, or by science presentations. So that's why, Scott, you're correct. It's been far and few in between. But as we move forward, we have less developmental stuff to put into these slots and more engagement and gaining knowledge. So I do think 4 will fit in it, especially as we kind of move forward into like summer of this year, and so I appreciate that insight. I do think it will fit just fine with 4 of them. Again, and then we have those in person, the field trip, which is all going to be engagement for 2 days, and whatnot. So I would agree that would be more than adequate. And then we can always course correct next year and go from there. But I'm adding this as a note now to kind of start thinking about that.
Yeah, I think another way, and I think we were talking about meeting length, and we could include some of the science presentations. Maybe some of our meetings are closer to the 90 minutes to 2 hours, but that might be another way to make sure we're not losing that component of our meetings by just having them be a hair longer. I wouldn't want to go over 2 hours. I think 2 hours is plenty on a Zoom Teams call. But I think maybe we could also think about how to bring that into some of those quarterly meetings as well, because I think it's a good suggestion.
Yeah, and Mark, I think that's a good point. Most of our meetings, we're wrapping up in the hour mark, which is great when we're just getting business done. But we do have time to bring in on the back end, or like as a current we can. So I don't see that being an issue going down to quarterly.
Jennifer or Mark G, any insight or perspective from your chairs and eyes looking and hearing what's going on?
Well, not rehashing anything that's, oh, sorry, Jennifer, go ahead.
No, I was waiting for you.
Oh, okay. I was going to say not to rehash. I think members raised really good points. I would just say you can always, if we drop to 4 and we need a special meeting, we can always go through that process and have another meeting. It's easier to add a meeting, it seems to me, than take away a meeting. So if we have 4 and a workload increases or some special circumstance dictates, we could always schedule a special meeting to cover that.
Yeah, I agree with what Mark said, and also Scott. I don't love having meetings just to have meetings. So I think going down to 4 and adding as needed is a good approach. I'm not saying we've had meetings to have meetings. It's been pretty busy. So it seems like a good time now to scale back.
Well, we'll go with for this coming year, go with the 4 meetings a year, recognizing that there's also the in-person meeting to review grants, which is in addition to the 4. And then if we have a field trip up on the Walla Walla River, that'll be another get together. So that'll be 6 meetings of sorts. And in particular, I think the in-person ones have been really valuable in terms of time together to sort stuff out. So we'll give that a whirl and see how it goes.
I will send an updated invite this afternoon, so just keep an eye out for that in the calendar invite.
With that, we'll move into the next topic, which is fall solicitations, which we'll let Andy explain to us how we each got 26 and 27 proposals to review in the coming month here and how we're going to do that.
Yes, 26 and 27. Let me get my notes off the screen here and share screen. I'm going to just present for a few minutes here, stuff you guys already kind of know, and then happy to kind of engage and answer any questions before we move on to the next agenda item here. Alrighty. Mark, hopefully you're starting to see something come in.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. All right. So, like I said, I'm going to provide a brief overview of the past year's grant submissions to the Private Forest Reported Grant Program. All the information I'm summarizing right now today is, of course, available online at pfagrants.com for anyone listening. And it's presented in much greater detail within the meeting materials for this meeting today. Overall, the 2025 solicitation was very successful. We received the highest number of applications across the last 3 funding cycles. Very exciting. Total funding requested peaked in 2023, just to put some frame of reference here, at $43 million requested in our first year. In 2024, we had $34 million requested in funding. And in 2025, the last open solicitation that closed early January, we had $39 million requested in funding. The average individual request size per project has gradually trended downward in the past few years, hopefully suggesting that the growth that we're seeing is being driven primarily by an increase in mid-sized projects rather than by larger and more expensive proposals. So we're just seeing the average project proposal requests reduce a little bit across the years. Again, this is only our 3rd year, so not too much data to go off of. As I mentioned last fall, this increase in submissions was anticipated for this coming cycle. The program continues to gain visibility. It's becoming more of an increasingly important funding source across the state for fish passage and habitat restoration projects. Consistent with previous years, as you can see on screen, most applications continue to come in from nonprofit organizations and watershed councils, followed by conservation districts. I'll real briefly show 2 maps here. Just take a quick moment to highlight how applications and funding requests are distributed across the state. I have this map and one other map to briefly highlight. As you can see, regional participation for submitted projects in 2025 varied pretty significantly across the state. This is separated by 5 regions. These are technical review team regions for those that are new or haven't seen this. So in the upper left is review team region 1, 2, 3. And then you see region 4, and then region 5 is on east side of Oregon. It's split into 5 north and 5 south. Just to paint the picture again one more time of these review regions, it's led by our 5 PFA stream biologists who will be presenting to the committee next month on submitted projects. Each region has about 3 to 4 reviewers in it. So we have a total of about 20 to 25 reviewers as a part of this process, or close to 30. So just real overview of this. Region 3 led the state with 28 total submissions, more than double of any other regions. Regions 2 and Region 5 North each received about 12 submissions, getting some more engagement from Eastern Oregon this year, which is great to see. Region 1 receives 11 submissions in the upper left, and Region 5 in the south side had 10. Region 4 had about 7 submissions, give or take there. Region 3 ranked the highest for funding asks with $12 million in funding requested. Region 2 had just about $7 million in funding requested. Region 5, North and South, each had about $6.5 million. So Eastern Oregon was about $12 million in funds requested from this program. We did have significant match contributions this year, also pretty meaningful. Region 5, the southern part of it, reported over $14 million in matching funds and asking for $6.5 million in funding, more than double the amount they requested. Region 1 showed a lot of partner investment up there, $4.5 million in matching funds compared to about $4.9 million in funding requested. The last slide I'm going to show you here is a distribution of funding requests across the state, submitted by county. So as you get into more of the heavy reds, that's where you're seeing more of the heavy funding requests. These are summations by county. So each of the jurisdictions are county. So you can see we have a lot of requests on the coast, the central coast, and kind of Northwest over there. And then in Northeast, we started to get a few more submissions this year. This is only for 2025. I don't have a comparison map for the other years. But as I said on the last slide, these numbers are demonstrating the need for this grant program, the importance of it, and the reach that we've already accomplished in only a few years. We've almost hit every county in the state applying for the program. The overall takeaway I have from this is that the demand for the grant funding remains high. It remains geographically diverse only 3 years after our launch, which is a huge success. The program so far appears to be utilized and for its intended use statewide, addressing local fish passage barriers, and of course, any private forest accord habitat conservation plan priorities. That was real brief. That's all I wanted to kind of chat about. I'm happy answer any questions to the best that I can. The committee may have about anything I'm talking about, or just an opportunity ahead of the reviews that are coming up. I'm going to stop sharing screen here. Last thing I will say real quick, hand it back to you, Mark, is I assigned all of you guys' review a little bit early. Sorry about that. My task manager was 2 weeks ahead of my schedule, and then I did it. And I said, well, it can't hurt. So we got 26 proposals on average for each person to review. I am available as your tech guy. So if you have any questions, please immediately reach out to me as you work through that process. I'm going to go over those deadlines in a minute here. But for the submissions, any insight, opinion, questions? Pass it back to you there, Mark.
Yeah, I guess I'd offer one question, and you may not be able to answer it. I'm just curious of the 80 applicants, what your sense was in terms of new applicants versus repeat applicants, and 80% the same people or 80% new people, or any instinct on that, Andy?
I don't have any hard numbers in front of me for that, but we do see a lot of repeats.
And do we have any constraint or limitation on how many active grants any one entity can apply for or have open at a time? Is that a consideration at all?
This is a great question. It is not a consideration. In years past, the committees expressed an interest to fund the most meaningful projects across the state.
Yeah, Scott.
Andy, you may have said this, but was there a breakdown in the dollar amount requested for implementation versus planning, monitoring, research, that kind of stuff? Was there a breakdown? You may have rattled through it really quick and I missed it, but.
That might be. I have it in front of me. It actually might be in the project attachments. Give me a minute. Let me look right here. Usually I do that. I don't think I might have.
I think your little dots on the map had different colors to show the different types of projects, but I don't know that I saw a summary of dollar amount requested. I'm just curious, not critical.
No, I don't. Sorry. I guess I precluded that. I usually add that in. So thanks for noting that. Sorry, I don't.
I do see one note in your handout. It says implementation continues to be the dominant project type year over year. So
it is the dominant one. It's also we have a lot of combination for project types that you guys will see. We have a lot of implementation and planning projects.
Jock.
Yeah, I wonder if you've done any kind of prioritization over what sorts of projects. In other words, the studies are one thing, and when you get into implementation, there's let's see. One thing I didn't mention was that I spent 18 years on the board of Polk Soil and Water Conservation District, so I saw a lot of grant activity. And sometimes you have to say, okay, what are we focusing on? Are we going to try to get fish passage? Are we going to try to, get stream turbidity down? Are we going to try? So, you start having to kind of rank these things. I don't know if you guys have done anything like that.
Yeah, good question. And Andy, I'll let you chime in. I don't think we've specifically prioritized anything, but I think we have sort of relied to some extent on the ODF&W stream bios to help us know what seems to be the most important projects in their area, their geography, so to speak.
Yep, that's exactly where we're at. The committee hasn't created any prioritization binning for funding as of late. It's I think at a certain point, the department, we recommend that we start exploring that path down the road. But the committee at this point is, like I was saying earlier, is trying to fund the most meaningful project at the time, that provides the most meaningful benefit to the covered species. So yeah, there's been no we don't do that ahead of time. We don't go and prioritize the proposals ahead of the committee in that sense. But next month, just to paint the picture quickly, our PFA stream bios will add a priority kind of from the department's perspective during the presentation.
Courtney?
Yeah, I was just I had similar questions when I first joined, but what I sort of realized is, there's some prioritization created in some of that covered species and the language underlying the grant program itself. But what I valued most was that each applicant is submitting kind of on their merits and also on the relevance and context of that region. And so one of the benefits is I found myself being able to rank multiple things with high priorities because in that region and in that habitat, that was the most important thing. And so, not having that sort of artificial hemming in of what is valuable statewide let us make community decisions that were more relevant to each community.
Mark Grumberger, I might ask you to chime in a second, and I guess I would make the contrast that OWEB, I think, does prioritize things and has had some programs like the Focused Investment Program that clearly calls out some priorities for funding. I think one difference is OWEB has on the order of a couple $100 million a biennium to allocate and has more room to move and more swimming lanes to create. Maybe that's not quite the right number, but relative to the 5 or the 10 million that we have, to work with, at least in this current biennium, it's not as easy to create multiple swimming lanes or priorities and sort of know how best to do it. So I think in part, that's how we've sort of come down to let the projects speak for themselves and the stream bios help us sort out priorities.
Yeah, I guess to boil it down a little bit, the PFA applications are responsive, much like the OWEB open solicitation grants, they're responsive. So we put out an announcement that we have applications, we're taking this type of application, and then we wait for them to come in. And so we respond to the applications. It's not a targeted request. We don't say we want fish passage only or some other sort of target. So we're responding to the needs of Oregon, basically, or the folks that are going to apply to us. So in that respect, we can try to get those projects that are the right ones, but ultimately it's the applicants, as Courtney mentioned, and was mentioned earlier. In the application, they make the case for their application. They make the case for its merit, its technical merit. Why is it a priority? What problems is it addressing? And why, the why here, why now? Why should we do this project here now? So yeah, in that case, I think it fits really well with how this grant program is set up. So hopefully that helps. It looks like Jennifer has a.
Yeah, Jennifer.
Yeah,
thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to share my perspective, from the Habitat Conservation Plan. This program is a really important component of the HCP, in that it helps we're funding projects that are intended to demonstrate, ecological uplift for the covered species. And so it's really hard to weigh, different projects or to bin it, because there's, we've got the water rights project, so we've got the implementation and research and monitoring. But all in all, what we're weighing here is like for the projects on their merits as submitted, which ones are going to provide the greatest ecological uplift for those covered species. And then the covered species currently are all treated equally, is my understanding, unless the scoring criteria has changed since I last looked at it, Andy. Does that sound accurate, Andy? That just how I portrayed that. That's kind of just how it connects to the HCP.
Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd use that as a segue. I guess I'd share a couple thoughts. Obviously, we have a lot of grants for each of us to review this time, and I've found the technical review from both ODF&W and from the federal agencies, or at least in this case, NOAA, to be really helpful. And in my own experience, when I started doing these, initially I thought, well, I'm going to read all the grants first and then see what the technical reviewers have to say. And I've since modified that and actually flipped it the other way. And I like reading the technical reviews first, partly because there's typically, I think this time around, 3 reviews for each grant. And you can look at the reviewers' comments pretty quickly, but you get a flavor on what they think is good, what works, what doesn't work, what concerns they might have. And that made me a lot more informed when I read the proposal, because a lot of our proposals are similar, whether it's large woody debris or replacing a culvert or things along that line. So it helped me going into my own review of the proposal to already have a sense of where the technical reviewers saw some strengths or opportunities or weaknesses. And at least for me, I also found that I could only really effectively do 3 or 4 at a sitting, and that rather than this idea that I'd sit down one day and do 10 or 15 was not nearly as beneficial as, carving off an hour or 90 minutes and doing 4 and then coming back to it, because it's, as we all know, there's some length to it and some depth and a fair bit of words you have to sort of read and synthesize. So at least for me, I found it helpful not to try and do too many all at once. I don't know if others have thoughts on that. At this point, the advisory committee's all reviewed a bunch, and I know Sherry and Jock, sounds like in your careers you've also had an opportunity to review grants, but I'd share that with you, especially given that we have a half dozen or more this time around than we typically have and had in the past. Joe?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, and maybe Andy or you will cover this in subsequent conversation, but is it typical that when there's a team, I think it's me, Courtney, and Mark, do we like divvy up there's 26, or do we all have to look at them together?
You have to look at them together, but they're not divvied up amongst the team. No. How we have our current ranking process is you score each one.
So we each look at them independently, all 3 of us, or do we ever all 3 of us get together and discuss them too, or?
No, we don't do that. So because we start to risk quorum and having decisions outside the public meeting. So as you have questions and concerns, I'm your first one to go to, and then I can help work through that.
All right, thanks.
I think my experience is it's just been nice when we get into the room for the group discussion, that if we were on a team together, we can kind of look at each other and like, do you remember this, or am I remembering this right?
Perfect example, Courtney. Thank you.
Sherry, go ahead.
Yeah, as you being new to this, as the timeline for seeing the reviews from the what did you call them, Andy? The regional specialists?
The PFA stream biologists.
When will those be posted on the?
Yeah. I got those on the next slide here. I'll be going over that timeline soon, but they should be getting to you guys by mid-February is what I'm hoping. Mid to late February here.
Okay. And as we go through these reviews. I was able to log in and was looking briefly, and maybe you'll cover this, but we will have the criteria. Is there a way to have the criteria out of the dashboard so that I can sit and look at the names of the species that we're listing, or is there a matrix that I can work with offline that then I enter some of those things you'll give to us at some point? Because
yes, so everything will be entered online in that system, but I'll do it in this after this meeting is send you guys all another copy of the scoring matrix, an external one, and the covered species list, so you guys just have it in your email directly. Okay. It's buried in our appendices. So thank you for that reminder. I'll send it to you, but keep everything in the system though. So as you're working through it, there's no save button. You just work through it. You get to the bottom, you fill out every box with an answer or a score. And then it's a bummer. You can't hit save or submit, or you can't hit submit, and you just move on to the next one. Okay. But it will stay there. So I promise you.
And I look back at your November meetings, and I think you covered this a little bit, but having teams, how do you guys reconcile across different groups when we come together and say, Chad and I are critical and we're low reviewers, and someone else is very positive and they're high reviewers, and is there some way that we account for individual review biases?
Yes, there is. So we use a score. I believe I can't remember if it's a single. I want to say it's a double tail z-score that I use to do it. And we go against. It helps to normalize the data to reduce the bias in the scoring.
Okay.
Great question.
And then we'll have a discussion kind of as to why we go through them individually, or or you pull out the highest ranked proposals and we discuss those more.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to paint it. So what will happen is on day one of the committee meeting on March 30th, Monday, next March 30th, is we'll meet together. A week ahead, I'll deliver something called a preliminary funding packet. This packet will have all proposals that were submitted in that packet. It will then have a score of each proposal. And then it will draw an arbitrary funding line around $10 million. It will just say this is where $10 million is hit, and then it will show the proposals that are below it. But you are going to have one full thing with all of the scores listed chronologically. Here's $10 million, here's the rest. As we move forward into that committee meeting, the first day of that meeting will be engagement with our regional PFA stream biologists, who are the experts in those areas. They'll present on each project that they rank as high and critical priority. That's a department priority. So not every project will be presented on, but they'll be prepped to answer questions on projects that they did not present on. So if you have a question that they didn't talk about, you're happy to answer it or ask it at that point in time. And then the committee does deliberations. It's an open discussion. So you'll raise your hand, talk during the presentation if it's about your proposal, or you want to get their technical insight on the proposal, that regional insight. That's the opportunity. Committee continues discussion and presentations all day. Day two, it's mainly just the committee discussing for 2 hours that final funding package. We go and we look at that preliminary funding package where we chronologically listed everything, and the committee gets to decide where that funding line stands, and they can arbitrarily move above or below projects based on merit and the conservation benefit to the covered species on if they want to fund it. So those scoring matrices, and just so everyone on the call is aware, it is not a confirmation of funding. It is just a starting point for the discussion.
One more question. Do people go back in and change their scoring? Going back to Mark's question, if I've read something and then later I thought, oh, I ranked that too low and I should have, compared to the other 20 I've read, now I realize this was a really high one. Is there a mechanism for that?
Not yet, no. Well, okay, so I guess it's a twofold answer. One is I'm going to close all I'll see the deadline in a minute, but I'll close all your reviews by a certain deadline. You cannot log in after that point. But if the question is you're going through all your reviews between now and that deadline and you read something, I send you the technical insight and you're like, oh, I want to go back to that one. Yes, you're able to go and hop into all the reviews up until that deadline that I pull it from you guys. That said, if you're in a meeting, if we're in our committee meeting next month or in-person meeting, something said, we don't need to elevate proposals above the funding line based off the scoring. So that's an opportunity for you to go, hey, you know, I've gotten more insight on this. I think this is a higher priority because of this justification. And that's why I think it should move up on the list.
Okay.
And that's how you would kind of approach that after the review deadlines passed. Does that answer your question, Sherry?
Yes. Yes,
Great
thanks.
question. Mhm. Mark, if it's helpful, I can just kind of go into the next slide here, which is talking about the review timeline once more. And then that might
Yeah.
just facilitate the conversation into what we're having.
Yeah, that sounds good. Go for it.
Awesome. All right. Great questions. All righty. Let's see. Actually, sure. Good questions, because much of that I was actually about to say. So give me a quick minute here to make sure I don't repeat myself all too much here. Okay, well, I'm not going to add much more actually, because that was actually almost all of what I was going to say. I'm going to highlight some dates here, and I want to highlight some important notes. So first, the dates. The review period is from January to April here, as you can see on screen. Oh, I lost you guys. You're back. The committee reviews, they started actually yesterday. That's when I assigned them to all of you. You will have until March 23rd, end of business, to wrap up your reviews. 5 p.m. that day, I close everyone out of the system and I pull all the information down so we can start tallying. So please get your scores in by then. If they're not in the system, you guys will hear from me and we'll kind of work on that. Of course, life happens. There's buffers built into this. So just stay communicative with me. I'm more than happy to work with what's needed. The committee meeting is March 30th and 31st. On that Monday, March 30th, it is held at ODFW headquarters in Salem. Tiffany should be reaching out to all of you for travel arrangements or any hotels that's needed. We'll start at 12 p.m. that first day. We'll have lunch, a brown bag lunch ready by about 11:30. So feel free to show up in the 11 to 11:30 hour. Already went over what day one's going to look like. After we wrap up the meeting, the committee will be hosting the committee for a dinner later that night in downtown Salem. We'll post some more information at that. Then the next second day will be starting at 10 a.m. and that's the committee deliberations that I was just talking about and the final recommendation. And that's when the committee will vote on a recommendation to the department. Once that recommendation is made, the department then presents in April to the commission on the final funding packet recommended for funding in this cycle. And we are funding up to, or the committee has the ability to fund up to $10 million in this funding cycle. Last thing I'll say is just remember these meetings are public. All of our meetings are public. The meetings that happen in March are very, very important meetings, of course. We're selecting funding, but it's very important for our grantees. People log in on those meetings. They do watch the recording because we lift the curtain and we kind of say how everything's done. Not many grant programs are as transparent as us. So I just say this so that when you are giving your comments, your feedback, the first thing is we cannot accept any new information from any application. So if there's something wrong in an application, we take an application at face value upon submission. So don't take into consideration anyone that reaches out, as they may do that during the meeting to correct you. And it is just a public domain. So just remember that. Your public comments are going to be there. It will be posted the next day. And we do have people watch it, but it's insightful. It's helpful. I say that, so I recommend you share your opinion because it really helps to drive this grant program in the direction that we want to do to meet our legislative intent by them hearing what you guys want to see in these proposals. It's a really cool thing that we do by being so transparent. That was it. So I don't have too much to talk about for that since we kind of just went into some good discussion on it. But is there any outstanding questions for me when it comes to the review period?
Thanks, Andy. That's a good summary. Obviously, I think we all have, a lot of people have their work cut out for them in the next several months here, the technical teams, the staff, and ourselves. Joe, I'm thinking this is also your first round of grant reviews. I can't remember if you caught it last year or not.
This is my first round.
Yeah, so I guess I would just offer to you and also Jock and Sherry, if you guys have questions while you're going through it, of course you can reach out to Andy, but you should feel free to contact me or Chad or any one of the other advisory committee members if you just want to clarify, bounce ideas back and forth. We can't have a group meeting about it, but you can certainly, reach out to me or Chad or others if you just want to get some clarification on the process.
And I'm going to go on then to the field trip discussion, Mark, if that works.
Yep, go for it.
Alrighty. All right. Let me get my notes back here. All right. So, as some of you might remember, on November 5th in 2024, I visited this project, the North Fork, at least part one, the North Fork Walla Walla restoration site. Visited with our local PFA stream biologist, Kirsten, and we walked it with the grantee. We also gave a presentation in December of 2024 to the committee on this project. It was one of the first ones that was wrapped up under our grant program. The project has already delivered pretty significant improvements. It's restored water flow through a corridor that has been heavily degraded by decades of grazing and helped stabilize an area that was severely scoured during 2020 floods. The project repaired multiple secondary and tributary channels across the floodplain and created high-quality habitat features for Habitat Conservation Plan covered species, including pools, riffles, and forage areas. This work represents phase one that we funded and phase two, which was also funded by PFA last grant cycle. So it is a 3-phase project. We are coming in as they're wrapping up phase one, or at least I'm recommending we go and visit it as they wrap up phase one. Another major success of this project, worth noting, has been the collaboration behind it. The landowners who have owned this property for multiple generations have been deeply engaged and supportive of this work. And that's thanks to the Watershed Council, who played a critical role in outreach and coordination and bringing the project together. It's a great story. Throughout the visit, it was just clear how much our partners appreciated the support provided by this committee and the grant program. Based on what I saw out there on the ground a few years ago, I am recommending that we host this year's private grant advisory committee field trip on site out there. It provides an excellent example of what the program can accomplish. It would be a valuable opportunity for the committee to see some tangible results in person for a watershed scale restoration that's different than the tide gate that we saw last year in Coos Bay. I'm looking at September, October, as Mark implied, when we would go again. Get that on your calendar soon. I'll send something out here soon. Of course, this is just a recommendation at this point in time. So I'm kind of happy to, if anyone has any other ideas of where to go or any other region, that's totally fine. We usually plan this stuff about 5 months in advance. So that's why I'm starting to put it on our radars. But yeah, we've awarded them 1.2 million at this point. Like I said, we won't see that second phase. It'll be kind of in the middle of it, but it'll be a good first phase. Oh, I'm sorry, Mark, before I hand it back, I should probably paint the picture of what I think the day might look like. We're going to do a little less than we did last time. We did a lot of driving last year. So it'll be up in Walla Walla in Milton Freewater area, probably stay in Pendleton. I am kind of thinking it's just going to be like 2 half days. So meet at noon probably, go do it, and then the morning the second day. I'm thinking possibly it might just be the one full day. But that's what we're looking at for this one. It would just be one area and then walking down the corridor.
Yeah, Andy, thanks for that overview. How far is it, the project site from Pendleton?
Milton, okay, so it's about a 35-minute drive from Milton Freewater, 40-minute drive. And then that's about a 30-minute from Pendleton, I believe. So we're probably about an hour and a half out, hour and a half or so from the project site.
And so we'd probably stay in Milton Freewater, you're thinking, or to be determined?
To be determined on availability of hotels in Milton Freewater. We don't have a whole lot of options. So I am thinking it's going to be Pendleton that we're going to stay in, most likely.
Yeah, any other thoughts, questions, or comments from the people today? Well, Andy, why don't you keep us posted? You know, two things, I guess, I think whatever dates you begin to circle around, the sooner they're shared with everybody, or the sooner maybe several different options on dates, that'll help make it more possible for people to get it on their calendars. And I don't have a good sense of what's where, but obviously wherever we stay, it'd be nice if we're going to the project both days to stay relatively closer to the project, so we don't have an hour-plus drive both times just to get to the same spot, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. I will get some dates identified and think through that.
Jennifer, you had a thought there.
Yeah, I was just going to share that the field trip last year was great, and it was really good to get out there and see the projects on the ground. You know, we talk about them at length on paper, but to see them on the ground is just a totally different experience. And the one thing I like about going out to this site is because this one was one of our first ones finished, it'll be quite different than last year's where they were all pretty freshly implemented. This one will have had more time, like, for things to settle and to kind of start to really see whether we're getting those changes in habitat or not for the restoration. So I support the idea. It looks great.
Yeah, thank you.
I like the idea of the follow-up visits, you know, to past projects so that we can get a feel for whether they're working or not.
Yeah, definitely. Courtney.
Yeah, it's such a trip out there, and I know in the past we've had some conversations around trying to expand applications coming in from some of the more rural communities. And I'm sensitive to creating kind of favor with different organizations, but I wonder if we're out there, are there community organizations or entities that are also valuable to be connecting with? I don't want it to look like we're trying to solicit favor, you know, or provide added benefit to potential future applicants. That's unfair. How often do we get out there and really see how that community is working in that landscape? You know, so are there other opportunities in the area while we're out, I guess?
Okay. I appreciate that. That's a good idea. I'll look into that. We usually do offer like a call for anyone in the area, just in general, to come join us. So we're trying to keep broadcasting that as we get louder and louder megaphones, because we will be inviting everyone in the area to come. Previous applicants, soon to be ones, opportunity to engage with all of you guys. But I really like that idea. I'll put that down to see it and reach out to our regional staff. And maybe there's some other things out in that area we can, like, day 2 go to. Good idea.
Yeah, good suggestion, Courtney, because I think some of the benefit of the field trip we had last fall was we were looking at multiple sites, but we had multiple partners come in, and I think there were some other partners from the community that weren't specifically involved in those projects, but were interested, that showed up for parts of those field trips too. So I think that's a great point to make ourselves available and reach out and see who else, if they're interested, they're welcome to come along.
Okay.
Jock.
I noticed that they said this area was heavily grazed, and so you got this interface between forestry and agriculture, and the somebody who walking in cold and say, well, why are you doing something that involves agriculture? Shouldn't ag be doing this? This is a private forest accord. And yet especially with small landowners, it's overlaps often. So, this sort, showing this sort of thing is trying to get more of the people that have mixed use involved.
Yeah, good point. Thank you. Other thoughts on the field trip for the moment? If not, Andy, I think the ball's kind of in your court to scout that out a little bit more. Think about when we're going to offer dates that could work for everybody, and think about logistics on as we get into that area and what other partners might want to make sure are aware that we're going to be there and invited to tag along. And Jock, it's pretty far out there. I don't know if your pilot's license is still valid, but you could shuttle us all out there.
Yeah. They don't think no, take a bigger airplane to I don't have access to DC-3s anymore. And they were cargo planes anyway.
Okay, I think we're on a wrap up here. Other comments, thoughts from anybody on the committee they'd like to share today, or staff? With that, I guess I'd say thank you everybody for making the time today. Sherry and Jock, welcome to the committee, and everybody can kind of stay synced up as we work through this 26, 27 proposals. And certainly if there's questions, go back to Andy, or you can always reach out to Chad or myself as well too. So
Thanks for leading the meeting in the pinch, Mark.
yeah. All right, that's it for today, everyone.
Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Yep.
Take care.
Bye all.
Bye now.